All right, we're live without all our technical difficulties.
We are live. And I know this doesn't look like a normal setup. Well, we don't look like a normal setup, but we are live in living color. Do me a favor, share this out on your network right now. Let's create these watch parties. And if you haven't went over to YouTube and subscribe, what are you waiting for? Go to YouTube, go to CTN Media, because we're changing the narrative and we're doing it with you. And today we're changing the narrative and we're doing it in the car. So it's real, y'all. We are for the culture, by the culture, and we're going to continue giving you this content. Now, I know a lot of you are getting ready for the debate tonight, but you can't get ready for the debate without hearing this from a new lens from 7 Generations Black. This is 7 Generations Black, a podcast powered to equip, inform, clear your lens, and present you with a new perspective. Let me introduce you to my amazing team. Theo E.J. Wilson, Mr. H. Stone, Lethal, and T-shirt gang. You already know he's coming with something fresh, y'all. My girl, Jice Johnson, to the left of me. And of course, I'm your girl, Shay J, and we are 7 Generations Back. Thank you guys for joining us on this liberated conversation. Oh, it's going to get real today. It's going to get real. So I'm going to just do what's best and hit you with the red pill alone. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. This is your opportunity to stop listening and tune out now. Well, if you do, the story ends. And you can go back to bed and wake up and believe, well, whatever it is you want to believe. However, if you take the 7 Generations red pill, you stay here with us in a liberatory discussion, and we show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Of course, the choice is yours. But welcome to 7 Generations Black. Y'all get ready.
No. Giants, don't do that. Giants, stop that. Stop the second camera. Stop it. Just doing it. Just don't do it.
Don't do it. All right, I think we're getting these technical difficulties together. Those of you tuning in saying, what is going on? We're actually traveling, but we felt this conversation was absolutely necessary. So we pulled over to the side of the road just to have this 7 Generations Black conversation with you. So thank you for rocking with your girls. If we call for backup, just meet us in Salida, Colorado, please, and thank you. Okay. So again, my panel from Shop Talk Live, Theo E.J. Wilson. I see that shirt, Ambition. Get you some.
You can get that at shopbbi.com.
Boom. Shameless plug.
Shameless.
the Honorable Protector Initiative, the one and only Lethal. You know, he's going to always come with something fresh for y'all. What does that one say?
Our liberation will be televised.
Changing the narrative right now. The Righteous Rage Institute, the one and only XO. This is my writing shirt. Creative. I like that. And I know you're doing some great writing. And the Black Business Initiative, Jice Johnson. Of course, you guys have to subscribe, like, and share wherever she's at. There it is.
I'm somewhere.
She's somewhere on there. All right, y'all. You know what time it is. We're getting close to election season, election time, election month. All those things are coming up. The debates are tonight. And so we actually changed our scheduled programming to have this conversation with you. And so today's topic, we're going to dig into, are we voting out of fear or are we voting to win? Let me ask y'all again. Are we voting out of fear or are we voting to win? This is a conversation truly to change your lenses. So share this out in our community. I think this is a conversation we should have had a long time ago. Dating back to the Nixon administration, the policy of the political elite has been one of non-interference, better known as benign neglect. When we look at this now, due to the do-nothing policy of benign neglect, violent white racists and extremists, they have been allowed to exist in all aspects of American way of life. Given that no political party since the race riots in 1968, we're in 2020 now, but since 1968 has seen it fit to publicly acknowledge the effects or existence of benign neglect in American society. How has that inaction influenced and shaped how Black people vote today? How has it influenced us? Are we voting out of fear? Out of a sense of duty, of the history symbols? Are we voting not to lose the little bit of crumbs that they sweep off the table and share with us? Or are we voting because there's a reason that we're voting? Are we winning? Are we voting to win? Are we just voting out of fear? Let's talk about it, y'all. I think we need to get into this conversation and talk about the victory for our people and what it looks like in this 2020 vote. Biden-Harris ticket, Trump ticket. What's the deal? Lethal, what's going on? How are we doing this? What are we doing?
So check it out. Dearly beloved, we're gathered here today to get through this thing called life. So let's get crazy, right?
Yeah.
First of all, right, when we talk about what it means to do something, when your intent is not to lose versus your intent being to win, right? Some people think that there's no difference. But if we go beyond what is our desired outcome, we see there is a mindset difference manifested in how we act or take actions, right? So what's the difference between voting not to lose and voting to win, right? We go to the sports analogy. Back in the days, Dean Smith, coach UNC North Carolina, right, had this thing called the four corners offense, right? Four corners offense was basically the offensive team is on the defensive team side of the court. 5 players, 4 of them go to the corners, and 1 player has the ball, and basically they play keep away ball. Keep the ball away from the other team, right? That is a situation where what you'll notice is they're playing not to lose the game, but they stopped doing what it was that they were doing that gave them a lead in the game as far as momentum is concerned. Playing to win. They stopped playing to win and started playing to lose, right?
Absolutely.
I would offer that keep away ball in voting is what foundational Black Americans who are the descendants of Africans, right, who are the victims of this country's slave program, have been voting not to lose for nearly 60 years as a result of the political elite's policy of non-interference or benign neglect.
So I think you right, with more technical difficulties. Can you talk about benign neglect? Because I think, you know, we need to understand what that actually means before just stating it. Theo.
Yeah. So basically, benign neglect was a policy of non-interference when it came to race relations in America. Benign neglect essentially said, let the momentum of Black oppression continue. We will not interfere. We will not be any ways aggressive about being anti-racist, about being anti-Black. What we're going to do is we're going to take a hands-off approach. And that involved, and by the way, the benign neglect theory was stated approximately at the same time that the war on drugs was instituted by the Nixon administration as well. It was around the same time, okay? And so on one hand, you have this passive non-interference with the machine of racism steamrolling Black folks. And on the other hand, you have this gasoline poured into that machine. You see what I'm saying? And it's a way to keep their hands clean, no blood on them, say, hey, it wasn't me. The Negroes are just killing each other. It's what it is, right? They're dysfunctional, inferior, rather than taking a good look at the systemic forces that cause everybody who's locked into systemic poverty to commit violence against one another. That violence excusing police action, that police action being assisted by the drug war. You see what I'm saying? That's what the whole amalgam of the circumstance of benign neglect.
And just real quick, so we understand, right? It's the political elite, right, who have agreed to this policy. What do I mean by that? What I mean is it was a member from one party who wrote benign neglect, but wrote it on behalf of and in support of the other party's membership or leadership of the administration. And so there's this agreement between both parties of benign neglect, non-interference, gently ignoring the issue of race-constructed society that we live in.
So how could either of these parties be for Black people with those type of
That's a very
agreements?
good question. That's a very good question.
So, and I want to encourage everybody, you know, this is normally Shay's job, but I'm just jumping in here to say, for everybody that is listening in right now, I really want to encourage you to share this out, because one of the things that has been said to me specifically, and I'm sure others, is there are the questions of, if you're not for Biden Harris, does that mean you're for Trump? If you are you telling Black people not to vote? Like, these conversations, I think we have to think beyond the surface. And I really want to, like, I want to see these numbers start going up. I want you to share out. We're on multiple platforms, so we can see what's going on here on the back end. I want you to share this out, and I want to see the numbers go up, because these conversations are real conversations that we have to get into, that really start dissecting why we are where we are. Because with the issue of benign neglect specifically, when I hear someone say, get Trump out of office and we will hold Biden and Harris accountable after they're in office, that's the first part that starts with benign neglect, because Biden and Harris haven't promised you anything. Accountability starts before they're in office. If they get elected into office without promising the Black community a single thing, that is where they have all the power of benign neglect. They haven't actually told you they were going to do anything.
That's a great point. When we look for it, my question, so, and I would love for you to step into this place. I know we talked a lot about the Black agenda. What is it that we should be asking them for? Because I think there has been a, silence. There's been silence in that area. No one's asking or demanding or whatever that looks like.
Go ahead, Lethal.
All I want to say, Shay, Sister Shay, is that no, we have the power. We have power. We don't need to ask for anything. We need to negotiate from a position of power, right? Just the other day, the Citigroup released a study saying that in this country, right, they have lost $16 trillion over 20 years from their racist policies against African Americans. Hear what I said? Racist policies against African Americans, not against people of color, not against minorities, against specifically African Americans, or as I like to call us, thanks to one of our supporters, Sister Brandy down in North Carolina, the Americanized African. Because of their hate of the Americanized African, you see what I'm saying? This country has lost $16 trillion over 20 years, the past 2 decades, right?
And God is good all the time.
Exactly. Now, if they were to end their racist policies today, according to the study by Citigroup, right, this country could put into its economy, into its gross domestic product, $5 trillion over the next 5 years. That means with the gross domestic product already being $20 trillion, Americanized Africans are responsible, right, for this country having lost or losing out on $21 trillion. We have power. We got to ask for shit. We demand it.
Or should we say their racist policies against Americanized Africans? Because basically,
opportunities that we are missing because we're not willing to hold them accountable.
Well, it looks like karma is instant in this situation. I see that when you dealing with the hater, it's just one of those things like hate destroys the hater first. You feel me? And one of the things about these folks is that they're too powerful to feel their karma, even when it's bearing down on their necks. The problem with Black folks is that even when they get their karma, we're too close to the fire. We get it too. When white America gets the cold, we get pneumonia. It's just what it is. And so I think that in this election, we're dealing with not a normal situation. Trump is not a normal situation. Let's be real about that. This dude is actually railing against the very walls of democracy, shit that nobody else has ever done. You know what I mean? From the people defying subpoenas to rushing through Supreme Court appointees to having the Supreme Court more conservative than it's ever been, to stochastic terrorists, white supremacists in the street shooting people, thinking they're doing it for Trump. Benign neglect of not that you can see benign neglect in Trump right there. neglecting to confront David Duke and any of his supporters who are aggressively white supremacists, right? This puts us in danger. One of the guys that debated me on my profile was like, well, what has Trump done? I'm like, listen, it's what he hasn't done that makes me in danger. You feel me? Like, if you don't discourage racists from shooting up places, then they're going to shoot up places, what they do. This is different. He is a completely different monster whatsoever. There's the evil of manipulating democracy, and there's the evil of sliding into fascism. Those are two different evils. One of the evils is the devil I know. The devil that he about to do, I don't know that devil. You see what I'm saying? I figured out how to navigate. How many presidents have I been alive through now? You feel me? Half from Democrat, half Republican. And so with this, when I'm looking at the grand scale, you see, the problem with black folks is we got a high heat tolerance. We don't realize the flame is up because we always in the fire. But the fact is that there's way more fire than we think there is. If you live in California, that's a literal thing. But the issue is that, like, the fact that this fool was going, like, he could slide into full Hitler. He could slide into full Hitler. And if this fool slides into full Hitler, it's not going to be benign neglect. It's going to be aggressive erasure. And that is something that I don't think we pose a threat with Harris and Biden. You might have other evils, such as playing to be our friend, but really, like, not our friend. Trump's a different monster altogether, in my personal opinion. That's how I see it.
I wholeheartedly disagree.
I know she's going to disagree with that, but before she disagrees, so I would love for you to chime in and just tell me where your mind is, what you're thinking when we're picking between an evil that we know and an evil we don't know, you know, all these things. And we're really talking about how do we progress our people. What are your thoughts on this voting and voting out of fear and voting to win?
Yeah. So here's the problem, as I see that's taking place in this conversation right now, is that we are talking about Biden versus Trump, and this is all a manipulated reality. Like, we should be talking about the fact that this is a manipulated reality. We should be talking about the fact that Princeton University came out and said that we no longer live in a democracy anymore. Princeton University came out and said that America is no longer a democracy, it's an oligarchy. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Biden versus Trump, when the bigger issue is the fact that and I use the term "our" loosely, our constitutional rights have been completely erased. They were never stable for Black folks to begin with, but even more so, the discussion here's what I try to tell people in the conversation I try to have with people when they try to fearmonger Trump as a candidate. And don't get me wrong, he's the worst, or he's bad. I don't think he's the worst. I think somebody that pretends to be a friend and does that is worst. But that's a whole nother subject. I can see Trump coming. A lot of Black folks ain't gonna see Kamala when she pulls up, just like they didn't see Obama when he deported brown people at the highest number. They didn't see Obama coming when he bombed an African country and took out Muammar Gaddafi illegally. They didn't see that coming. They didn't see that coming when when Obama started prosecuting whistleblowers inside of corporate America. They didn't see none of that coming. In fact, they don't even say nothing about it now. To me, that's a much more dangerous element than we can catch Trump coming. We can see him coming. But again, I think the mistake for us is to get caught inside of this dichotomy that says blue versus red, Trump versus Biden, right? And instead, we should be questioning, why don't we live in a democracy anymore, and what the hell are we going to do about it? That's really the issue, right? That's really what's at stake. Is it if white folks are saying we no longer live in a democracy,
right?
So also, can you also tell us what an oligarchy is?
So
because we hear every day.
I'm sorry. So oligarchy means that the rich folks rule. You want an example of that? We saw more on Black Twitter about Megan Thee Stallion getting shot in her leg by her dude, then we saw all over the fact that during the pandemic that Wall Street received one of its largest bailout ever in this country. Black folks ain't talking about that. White folks ain't talking about that. CNN ain't talking about that. And that is the hugest bailout. They got what, $3 trillion, and we was doing the moonwalk and the Cabbage Patch over $1,200 check that came through.
Wait, but we tried to talk about that because I said as soon as this happened, this is about to be the largest wealth transfer we have ever seen. The largest wealth transfer. And so it boggles my mind. Like I get frustrated. I'm not even gonna lie. Like there are so many times that I just pull back because I really feel like if I just say what I had to say or say what's really going on, you know, it's not well received because we see what we want to be seen. Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things. Like that's part of my frustration around this conversation, because it doesn't matter how much you keep saying.
Don't be frustrated. Understand this, Jice, and this will help with your frustration.
Help me with my frustration, please. Let me know.
I'm gonna put your frustration in historical context. Most Black folks did not run off the plantation. Most. It was the very few that heard the word and headed north and had the courage to do that. Freedom is not a mass movement at first. It starts by the vanguard. And so with that being said, you're like Harriet Tubman going down onto the plantation talking about, yo, I'm not talking about something that I'm dreaming. I done been there 4 times. I need y'all to go ahead and organize. If she couldn't do it, and Black folks was living under the lash, right? It was very clear where white folks was with Black folks when she was trying to organize, right? It's very similar to now, right? Where it's very clear that we do not have a friend in this government, in this system. We don't have a friend. And so this is the last thing, and then I'll close out. And this is what I will ask all those people who are pushing Biden and pushing Kamala and pushing the urgency of doing this now and voting, even though it's not perfect. I would just ask you to consider this. If the oligarchy has figured out that all it has to do in order to make you choose the candidate that they want you to choose is to put up a worse candidate, a boogie monster candidate, and you will automatically run to, then what makes you think that after this 4 years or after this 8 years that they're not going to continue to do it? This is a game and an element that they will continue to play as long as it works on the Black psyche, which is like, yo, Chicken Little, right? We all shoot. Listen, why, as a rich person, why wouldn't I run a Trump every 4 years if I really want a Biden to win? We got to think. We got to be more nuanced than that as political thinkers.
I agree with you, H. What I want to jump in and say was this, right? When we start talking about vote shaming, right, and people say to you that if you don't vote the way that they want you to vote and things of that nature, or rather, if you don't vote, then you can't complain. My response to that is this, right? If I don't vote and I can't complain, then if you vote and the guy or gal you voted for fucks us in the ass, you need to shut the fuck up.
Well, there.
How do you feel? How do you feel?
Hide your children, hide your wife during this program.
Oh no.
We've just said very serious stuff here, and I think it's going to get even more real. So this is rated R light.
Okay.
Don't share this out on your network because it's rated R, but I think this is a conversation we need to have in our community. I know it's a conversation we need to have in our community. When we start talking about third party and having another party, in real life, what does that look like? And is that anything that we should really be pushing towards having another party?
Honestly, I think, listen, there's so many people who want a third party. The opportunity to create a third party came in 2016. Had Bernie Sanders, after having the states that he won been stolen from him, stood up on the microphone at the DNC and said, this is it. You guys screwed me over. I'm leaving. All of the middle of the aisle, he would have got libertarians. He would have got, you know what I'm saying, Green Parters. We would have got them all had he been able to have the courage to do that. So I believe the moment to do that was the ripest back then. I don't think you're going to have that moment again, to be honest with you. And Bernie was the guy to do it, and that's not what he did. What I feel is that hold on, but here's
I'm going to ask you a clarifying question about what you're saying. So if you use your maxim, and I think we need to really push out that maxim that you say about capitalism,
right?
That you can never trust it. So could we even trust a third party as long as in America and in the Constitution that a dollar equals a voice or a vote?
Well, listen. So here's the thing about Black folks. We cynical as hell. And rightfully so. We've had the most cynical shit done to us. You feel me? Like, so, we're super cynical, and therefore it activates any part of our confirmation bias towards the most cynical outcome. I've just seen this, and this is just what we did. This is just what it is, right? There's a large swath of other data to take in here. And what I feel is that, so there's a possibility to do it. There are upward swinging, momentums to do that. I'm not sure if this is going to happen at this point. So I'm about to apply this to myself. There's some cynical shit on the horizon that has me ready to vote right now. And I was a burning motherfucker. That was the closest cat who I could see who I could vote for, not just to vote for him, to vote against somebody. He was the last cat who I was like, yo, I could vote for this dude, right? But the fact is that we're actually closer to collapse, not as a party, but as a society. If you study the collapse of the Soviet Union, if you study the collapse of Nazi Germany's society right after the Second Reich and on into the Third Reich with Adolf Hitler, the storm clouds that I'm seeing are unlike storm clouds that I've ever seen before. We got to get through this one. And I know it sounds like I'm being like, vote Biden and shit like that. I am going to vote Biden. I don't want to vote Biden. But you're talking to somebody who sat out the last election, because I was like, man, fuck all this shit. You're talking to somebody who sat it out. As active as I am in the whole community, I was like, well, I'm already active in the community. If there's a change that's going to be made, I'm going to make it. You feel me?
You think we're in a worse position now than we were when we were on the plantation?
No. I'm saying that as a general society, I'm saying white America is in a worse position now than it was when we were on the plantation, which is interesting, right? Why? Because Black folks, we always in the fire. Sometimes we can't see how big the flames has got because we always in the fire. What I'm looking at is we have a economic depression on our hands that dwarfs the economic fallout of 2009. That's different than what we had in 2016. What's different is the 200,000 dead plus from the pandemic. What's different is the fact that we have almost default mode on America's credit rating as a country, right? So we're looking at a situation, if we can't get our act together, we lose our standing as the world's reserve currency, which means that we suffer the same fate that the pound did when it had its status removed, which is we can sustain this depression as long as we have the printing press that matters. If the world should gather and another 4 years of Trump happens and they say we do not trust America's judgment or stability to have it be the world reserve currency, we're taking it to China's yuan. So they're full shit, and that's what's different now.
So Theo, as a Pan-Africanist, how upset are you about that scenario?
Here's the thing. As a Pan-Africanist, I'm getting that motherfucking passport tight.
Period.
As a Pan-Africanist,
I ain't mad at you. But also because again, when we talked about the wealth transfer, though, I said that as soon as they turned around and cut a couple $1 trillion just like that, I was like, oh, because those are the conversations that we're not talking about when it comes to economics and what this actually looks like. So I already said Ray Dalio is literally putting out a ton of information of the rise and fall of world currencies and how they have happened, and is looking at what's happening in the US, and it's already been very strong hinting at that there could be a fall in, you know, the US currency or whatever. But I wanted to go back, if I can jump all the way back to a point that you were making earlier, which was, you know, again, kind of akin to the, you know, the lesser of two evils conversation. And so we talk about all the things that could happen under Trump. The other side of it, and this is the part that I think that we struggle with inside of the Black community, is, and there's all these systemic reasons. So I'm not pointing fingers at the Black community or blaming the Black community for why we're here, but I'm acknowledging that that we're still here, right? Under the pandemic, just as an example, the estimation is that 41% of Black-owned businesses shut down. Black-owned businesses were generating barely next to nothing. We're not stable, could not access capital. We're in low barrier to entry businesses and industries. And what that means is that you didn't have to have a license. You don't have to have any equipment. You don't really have to pay anything. You just jump up and say, this is what I do. At best, our most licensed industry is basically cosmetology, right? Like, that's where we are. If you cut hair, then that is like one of, you know, that's the high end on the licensing side in terms of numbers that we were getting. So we're not in skilled trades. We're not in technology. We're not in these things that were advancing us. It sucks that 41% of Black-owned businesses shut down. Those 41% of businesses bought through single member LLC and sole proprietorships. That means that they were the business all to themselves. They had no employees. What was going to jump us into the next level? What was going to move us into the space where we were going to focus in on how we grow our industries, grow our businesses, how we advance, how we actually move forward in a world that was skyrocketing past us, right? So at this point in time, are we going to say, like, fuck Trump? Fuck Trump. Okay, this is why we're sitting in the car and not in the restaurant, because we're in this little hick-ass town. Fuck Trump. We're not worried about that. What I am saying is that how do we keep voting for the same people with a different name over and over and over again, who have had long-lasting systemic consequences on the Black community that have killed us, not just physically, but have taken us out of our homes, have removed our rights, have removed our abilities to parent our children, have removed our abilities to educate our children, and we just keep doing it over and over and over again, hoping for the lesser of two evils, not the fucking lesser of two evils. These are two evil ass motherfuckers, and we keep just blowing right past it and saying, oh, let's just figure it out. My issue is this. When we talk about accountability, why is the Black community so scared to hold their vote hostage to the Democratic Party, which is the only party that matters? Because the Republican Party does not need the Black vote to matter. They will win if the Black vote is not in place for the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is the party that we have to hold responsible. So whether we get a third party or we don't get a third party, why is the Black community afraid to say, I will not vote for you until you give me something besides benign neglect?
We have not
so
been
let me hold on there real quick. Let me come back to this, right? Because Jice made some good points, and Soul and yourself actually, right, that I want to actually sort of wrap up, right? First of all, to Jice's question, I think that our people do not have an understanding that hope is not a strategy. That's the first thing. Hope is not a strategy, right? That's hoping something happens is not how something happens. And a strategy is how you do something. That's basic. That's easily understood, right? To this piece about what the fuck Princeton is saying about we're no longer a democracy, we're an oligarchy, blah, 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 blah. Check this out. We've always been a fucking oligarchy, and we've never been a democracy, right? You can't call yourself a democracy, right? at the federal level, for example, yet you have the electoral college that can overrule the popular vote. That's not a democracy. That's number
Which
one.
is what happened with Trump. Because that point right there gets on my fucking nerves when everyone keeps saying, well, if you didn't vote, that's how Trump got in. White America is how Trump got in. White racism is how Trump got into office. It's not black folks didn't vote. We already know Hillary had the popular vote.
Right.
White America is who put Trump in office. So people need to stop trying to look at the black community and saying, what the fuck we need to do? We didn't do shit to put Trump in office. White racism put Trump in office.
Ooh, we got Jice.
I'm not sure about that.
Because of the first estate, right? Because of the first estate of governance. Remember, the first estate is the rich and noble. Second estate is the clergy. Third estate is the commoners. Fourth estate is the news and media. You can look this shit up. Because of the first estate, we need to understand something, right? We've always been an oligarchy. Why? Because government is the shadow of business. We need to understand that, right? And so what I want to say next is this, right? To the question about the value of a third party, right? And to Soul's piece, to Theo about capitalism, part of the equation, then you can't rule out corruption, right?
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say to that, right? And I'm going to quote Plato here, right? We will never see an end of trouble until lovers of wisdom come to power, and or the holders of power and their supporters come to love wisdom.
So this is my question here, and this is a valid question. I think I have watched over the last 4 years, because Trump was elected, I've watched more Black people own guns and form gun clubs. I've watched more Black people move back to the land and start cultivating the land. I've watched more Black people trying to control the education of their children and get involved in creating freedom schools. So when we say,
go ahead, Saul. I feel you. Go ahead, Saul. Make that point. Driving on home.
I think we need to define who we are when we talk about we are going to fall under this president. To Shaka's point, we've always had pneumonia when America's had the cold. And so my concern is this, that Biden and Kamala are only Novocaine to Black people. They're Novocaine. They are not the solution. They are just getting your root canal done with Novocaine. Trump is the truth. Trump is the truth of who America is, was, and will always be. And until we understand and operate from that premise, then we're going to be like that crackhead at the dice table in Vegas at 3 o'clock in the morning that's hawked all day shit, hoping for lucky number 7, when in truth, if we are, as Black people, are starting to come into our own and forming all of these independent institutions, then do we really want to go back from that? I mean, just
that is a great question. So hold on, Jace.
Go ahead.
So you're right. There is a tremendous move for self-sufficiency right now. What I'm saying is that we've moved in that direction before, and we've known what white America will do once we actually start to get some teeth behind our guns and some teeth behind our farms and the organization. We know that there will be, right? Warlike activity that happens by the time we get our shit together, and it might happen in more complex ways, right? So what I'm saying is that, with that being said, I think that we have so many accurate critiques of America that it's time we get the fuck out. And I think that we have to be honest about what that looks like. 400 years passed, Moses ain't come, so we gotta leave. You feel me? And I think most of us, if we can travel, we need to travel. If we need to use some of this money to set up shop in other countries, we need to do that.
You ain't going nowhere. Listen, I live
no, because
no. Because you run somewhere that America cannot get to, and they dropping drones.
But it's still, I'm telling you, even with a majority, if you look at African liberation struggle, one of the things that Africa had the advantage over is overwhelming super majority. It's the same thing that Haiti had.
Africans don't think that you're African.
Yes, they do. No, have you forgot who I was married to?
Listen, you married her here. You married her here. So this is
we going home.
So listen, here's my point. You use 400 years as an example. You use 400 years as an example. How far were the Israelites from the promised land?
They was what? I mean, I don't even believe in that story, man.
I'm asking you, you used 400 years. So I'm saying in that period.
They were literally right there. They were literally right across the Red Sea.
We are already here. We ain't got
to have airplanes. That's the thing. They didn't have no airplanes. They didn't have freaking tickets. Then that's the difference. So
okay. So listen, I got no problem with leaving the U.S. That's not the issue, right? But that's the 44 million people are not exiting the United States.
Get the fuck out.
Right, and so that's cool because we could have a whole conversation about what it looks like to exit the U.S. That's a valid conversation. I think that we are not wanted here. I think that there is no point in time that since we've ever been here that they have wanted us here. I don't think there's any hope for the future that they're going to want us.
What African nation has dual citizenship?
Right now it's just Ghana, and they're offering
Ghana does not have dual citizenship.
No. They have a program called the Ghana Joseph program.
And it's bullshit.
And they're offering repatriation.
It's bullshit.
I can bring my sister Juanita Groves on here right now. She can talk to you about it.
Listen, she don't have to. I was on the coordinating committee for the Joseph Project. I was part and parcel of.
Hey, we getting off topic.
No,
right.
How about that? What we're gonna do is we're gonna do a conversation. Because this is the beautiful thing. Those of you tapping in saying this is getting good, this every single week. Don't just tune in this week. Tune in next week and the week after that and the week after that, because this is the conversation we do need to have about where we're going next. Are we going in mass? Are we going solo? Or what's happening? Go to CTM Media on YouTube and subscribe right now. Let me ask you guys a question before we get too off topic. And because there are people that they're not in the place that we're in. They're not in the place to have these type of conversations. They're just like, all I know is that I don't like Trump right now. I need to vote. What do I do? And then we're looking at what the Democrats are doing. I don't know if you guys have seen recently, but the Democrats are putting out messaging. They used a group of strippers to put out messaging to Black men to vote.
What?
So I
didn't see that one.
It's real.
They did what?
It's real. So, it's a PSA with like that, doing that, like that. And the strippers are telling Black men to vote because they said, how do we get Black men's attention? So they use the strippers.
And that's with Kamala as the vice president nominee.
But that goes to show you how they view the Black community.
The respect that they have.
So going back to the issue of benign neglect and going back to the issue of holding the Democrats responsible and accountable, accountability starts before the vote. My question still stands. What makes the Black community so scared to hold their vote hostage? Because here's what I keep hearing. My ancestors died to vote. Your ancestors died for your right to vote. Oh, go ahead.
No, they didn't. No, they did not. Our ancestors did not die to vote. That's the first thing I want to say. They did not die for that, right?
Go ahead.
Our ancestors, no, hold on. Let me get, our ancestors did not die to vote. They died because violent, white, racist extremists murdered them. Period.
Thank you.
We were willing to die to vote is her point.
Listen.
Say that again.
I said your point is that we were willing to die to vote.
Right. And my further point of that was it's a right. It's not that you are obligated to go and vote for the lesser of two evils. This is the right for you to participate in the system that governs your everyday life. And if you only participate every fucking 4 years, you're not in the game. So then shut the fuck up.
Well, I would say this: without the vote,
y'all need to do this.
Have Jay Anderson in office. Without the right to vote, we wouldn't have Leslie Herod in office, like right here locally. Without the right to vote, we wouldn't have freaking James Coleman in office. These local brothers and sisters right here who are kicking ass and taking names for our folks. The right to vote also is part of so then there's the local elections. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
The local elections is one of the things that you actually when I saw the things that Leslie Herod was able to do from the local level, I was just so surprised that it could even be done. Sister's like a walking miracle, you feel me? And as his young brother Tay Anderson, you feel me? And you know what I'm saying, Jennifer Bacon and all of these black folks that we got that's on the local level who could in time with enough leverage ascend to a place where they have the kind of things that are going to be necessary to pass massive legislation. So here's one of the things that people are not considering with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So you got Joe Biden with his history with the freaking, crime bill, the omnibus bill of 1994. You got Kamala intentionally keeping niggas locked up. One of the things that happens is when you don't know that the Democrats can stab you in the back, it makes it more dangerous. When you know that these people can stab you in the back, now you have an accountability watchdog at the very least. And what you also have is you got the whole AOC wing of the Congress right now, who literally is on some radical shit. So guess what? You literally have a whole wing talking about reparations in the Democratic Party. And what Joe Biden knows is that he can't get a Democratic majority without the wing that's talking that shit. So when you talk about strategically playing the game, you say hope is not a strategy. Neither the fuck is cynicism, my nigga. Neither the fuck is cynicism.
But this is not just about cynicism.
Hold on. Was I not just laying out a strategy? So
I hear you.
You have a wing of folks that are greater than the number needed necessary for Biden and Kamala to win any Democratic majority over the Republicans. In order for him to get them motherfuckers, and the whole community knows who they used to be, you got to appeal to that wing, which means you got to write legislation, which means you have to see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but here's your contradiction, Theo. Here's your immersed in contradiction.
Okay.
What African country can you move to and vote and have citizenship? And yet you're positing that as a viable strategy. But black folks from America can't vote nowhere in Africa. And regardless to what hype you've heard, there's no citizenship offered. So I say that to say, I dig you with this first strategy. I think that's wise. I think you're right on target with AOC and that piece and local elections. I'm totally with that. I think that's absolutely
what I said is if we see America the way that you talking, if we see this bitch unredeemable, what does it matter? I can't vote in Ghana. What does it matter? I can't vote in Kenya. What does it matter? I can't vote in South Africa.
This is the matter. It matters because we know this place. See, we think America is the land. We occupy the land. America's going to come and go. America is the corporation, the institution that has placed itself on top of this land, but it's not ownership of it. They don't control the land itself.
I don't know about that. Ask the fracking companies. They definitely control what's on and in the land.
What I'm saying is, don't we agree that America is going to stop existing at some point?
But when it falls on black folks first. Look at Hurricane.
You're absolutely right, but that's going to be global. That's a global reality. That's not a local reality. That's a global reality.
Based off of white supremacy.
Yes.
Based off of violent white racism.
That's right.
Because to shock an earlier point with that city group, because violent white racism will shoot its own self in the foot to maintain its racism. That's why that's
right out here and travel.
But I got another question. I got another question because there's one thing that we don't discuss when we start talking about who's going to do what for us. And this is the thing when we start talking about these lesser of two evils again and the way that we play these politics, then why are we not talking enough about all the bullshit and fuckery that's happened to black people under black people's watch?
That's real shit.
Because
that can't be in office. You feel me? That's it. Yeah. Right. Shit just happened to us. For example, under Hancock, where when I was fighting to preserve Pierre's from getting bulldozed, it was him who would not give that building a historic designation.
That's what we got you a better one. Yeah. How about the time you confronted Hancock out at Regis, asking him about your friend that got shot, and he turned around and told you that you need to look at your behavior towards police and why police are shooting you because of your implicit bias.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about. So I don't have any.
Yeah.
Yes, I got it on tape. We got it on tape.
That happened. But I have to say again, when it comes to the politics, you're absolutely right. We have to play at the local level, but we have to play smarter. Y'all know I'm black all day, every day, 2 times a day, 24 times a day, every day, as in many ways as I can be. Right? I stay playing black on black on black on black on black. Okay, my car is black on motherfucking black. I can't get no blacker. I really promise you that, and I still promise you that we have to play politics. We can't keep playing skin politics. And what would be amazing from a strategic standpoint is if we spent the next 4 years raising up our people, our skin folk, to be in policy politics so that we can put them in the types of positions that we need to make real structural change. Because even with all of this going on, with pandemics, with protests, with every major corporation and smaller corporations hiring Black people to have a DEI position, what we know is that as long as it's not affecting their bottom line, they still don't care. And so as much as it costs the cities to go in and clean up all the BLM mess and all the pandemic mess and all the protest mess, it's not affecting them enough for them to make real systemic policy changes. So we keep going back to the same old, and we're really not getting the breadth of what we have, the real shit that we have to do. And the reason why I am, and again, prefacing, fuck Trump, quite frankly, fuck all of them. But at this particular moment, what I'm telling you is that a Biden and a Harris ticket is going to lull Black people right back to sleep. You're going to feel comfortable out of a Trump America. And what happens when you go to sleep is you are not about the work of the work. We have work to do. We have so much work to do. Literally from the bottom up, from changing values to changing schools, to changing justice systems, to changing the policies that govern our lives every day, to changing the electoral college policies. All types of work that we have to do. And as soon as you feel comfortable that Trump is no longer in office, then you feel like your work is done. And somewhere in there, somebody else is going to hold Kamala and Biden accountable to everything that they never promised.
I don't think we're in that world no more.
So Jice, right? You make a very good point. You bring up very good points, right? Here's the thing, right? And I think Theo spoke to it before in an earlier episode. Because we have been so traumatized, right? We have been led, right, to focus on this fantasy and ideology of equality in a race-structured society, right? Well, as Dr. Claude Anderson says, race is a competition. Right? Tomorrow night, for example, LeBron James and the Lakers with Anthony Davis are going to be playing against Jimmy Butler and Adebayo and the Miami Heat. They're not competing against each other to be fucking equal, right? And we don't understand that, right? And we have always focused on, and we have always bigged up and touted, right, the so-called social advancements that we have made as a society and a people, right? But what we fail to understand is this is not a country built on social kindness and social goodness, right? This country is built on capitalism. This country is about that free market. That means it is about competition, right? And if I can have $1 trillion or $1 billion or $1 million, why in the fuck would I want you, my competition, to also have $1 trillion or or $1 billion or $1 million. It doesn't make any sense, right? And so what we fail to understand is we have been pursuing social advancements instead of economic advancements, which will force those who want our power and our support to bend the goddamn knee.
You know why people want the Democratic Party, why Black folks want the Democratic Party?
Why so?
Because we don't have faith in ourselves. We think that we need America. We are addicted to America. We think that if America falls, that automatically means we gonna fall too. And but it's always been the case. We're always lost to many of them. Like KRS-One said, we will be here forever, forever and ever, forever and ever. We will be here forever. And so what I'm saying is that, yes, if they can always hold the threat of, if America falls, you know it's going to be bad. Listen, they said the same shit on the plantation. If we don't have a good season of cotton, it's going to be bads around here. And what they really meant, it was already bads around here for us. It's already that. It's already that. So when are we going to say, listen, let's let the chips fall where they may. Let's let the chips fall where they may, because you're not going to keep making me a hoe. Listen to what we just said. They are using strippers to sell democracy to Black people. These are the people. This is the lesser of two evils, mind you. We're talking about. We're talking about the lesser of two evils. Are like, yo, give them some hoes.
And they'll be flying those boats. You know what time it is? Our mindset.
I probably would have watched that advertisement and then felt disgusted afterwards. Disgusted, completely demoralized. What do you think I am?
What do you think I am? All right, my friends, you know what time it is. It's time for our mindset moment. This is why you watch 7 Generations Black, because we're all about giving you a new lens, a new perspective, and a chance to shift your mindset. So, family, I need you to give our mindset moment so we can talk about, are we voting out of fear or are we voting to win? What is that mindset shift? I'm going to start it off with my guy, Theo E.J. Wilson.
Well, in order to vote to win, there has to be a win involved. We already know that this isn't a win-win situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not a real solid win over here. Everybody has solid viewpoints with this one. And I'll say it like this. Francis Cress Welsing said that Black folks are adept at problem perception, not so good at problem solution if that solution looks like confronting violent white racism.
Ooh.
That's what Francis Cress Welsing said in the ISIS papers.
Can somebody type that? That was fucking dope.
Right.
So we are adept at problem perception, not so good at problem solution.
Yeah.
If that solution looks like a confrontation with violent white racism.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is that we have analysis to paralysis. We can see all of the shadow of America. We are the butthole of America. Nobody knows you like your butthole. Your butthole knows exactly what you ate. It knows exactly how hot it was and everything. You see what I'm saying? So we're the butthole of America. We know exactly how hot this shit really is, right? But the fact is that we have to decide. And look, the reason why I bring up Exodus is because of the fact that I know people who have done it, who are living there right now, right? So, sister, right now, I know who's like, nigga, you need to get out here. What the fuck are they doing, right? Which mountains do you want to climb? Which mountains do you want to climb? Which demons do you want to fight? Feel me? This is what we have to ask ourselves. And if there's no win in the Democrats and there's no win in the Republicans, I've already sounded as woke as I possibly can. Right now, I need to figure out where the fucking foot falls because I have a daughter and I got to figure this stuff out. See what I'm saying? And so if I don't have my ticket to Ghana, if I don't have my ticket right now, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do on November goddamn 3rd.
Yeah.
And seeing as how I set out, so this is Theo. I'm not telling you what to do. This is me. I sat out last election, and I feel like shit because as a freed slave will do. They will use any tool in their toolbox to get free. I'm not expecting to vote my way into fucking freedom. I know that. But a slave who's willing to fight for their freedom will use anything in their environment to pick that lock. I'm not worried about the Mason-Dixon line. I got to get to the end of the plantation. Once I get to the end of the plantation, I'll figure that out. Well, getting to the plantation doesn't mean freedom. I don't give a fuck. I have to use every square inch of every tool that I have. So voting is a tool that could get me some wiggle room out of this shackle. That's what you feel me? I know it will get me to the Mason-Dixon line. I just need to get out of this fucking shackle. So this is what we need to figure out. So before we throw out the whole shit, if you're not moving out the fuck of America, if you're not moving to Panama, Jamaica, whatever, on November 3rd, figure this shit the fuck out, because this is different than any other election that we've ever seen. And that's why I'm gonna leave it. It is different. 200,000 dead is different. Economic depression is different. A pandemic is different. Just won't say.
I love that. Thank you for that, Theo. Figure out what's important to you, y'all. My guy, H. Soul, what do we need for that mindset moment? Look into this from a 7-generational lens.
I echo everything that Brother Theo said. I know it sounded like we were in disagreement, and that's over some details, but I agree with everything that he's saying and his analysis of it. I don't think it's an either or as far as his analysis is concerned in regards to, yes, I agree with everything that he's saying, and we have to have a long-term strategy as well, right? And I think that's the conversation. As a short-term strategy, I agree with what he's saying. As a long-term strategy, the problem is our short-term strategy continues to be our long-term strategy, and that's the issue. Lastly, I really think that we got into the issue that we're in because Black people, and for the most part, we stopped following the Pink Pussy Hat movement. And I think this is where we actually made a mistake. If we would have just continued to get behind Hillary, if Black people would perhaps put on a pink pussy hat themselves, if we would have taken on that mentality, then perhaps, just perhaps, I mean, we've tried everything else. If we would have engaged in like blacks for pink pussy hats, that is a strategy that I think deserves to be examined at this late great hour, and we should do so, lest we continue.
Come back. Breaker 19. We're not finished, family. come back with this mindset moment. It's important. This is how you know when it's
right.
I feel
good.
Like
something was getting
I
ready.
Was like, hold up, he's coming through. Those of you on the network, if you haven't, you can still share this out because other debates coming on tonight. And I just want you to think about some things. We want you to think about some things before the debate hits. It's beyond politics. It's something that we really need to sit down and talk about what it looks like for us to look 7 generations ahead of us to make sure we're setting this up for our Black family, our Black culture, our Black tribe. While we're waiting for A-Soul to come back, he tapped out, but he'll tap back in. I'm going to have my girl Joyce. Oh, boom. There you go.
So last week I was put into trouble, and I'm going to say this very clearly. I was in trouble because last week I was hanging out with 3 other guest hosts who were talking about Black men and Black women. And so we had people who left our freedom school because they felt that I was hanging out with too radical of a group of Black people. And so I'm trying to tone down that message this week by saying I love Hillary Clinton. I thought that she was the hope for America. And listen, if they get caught, just know that I don't know none of them. I don't really hang out with any of them all that much. And Hillary 2020, A-Soul out.
Drop the mic on you. All right, my girl Joyce Johnson. How do we look at this from a 7-generational lens, a mindset movement and shift?
Oh my goodness. I don't even know that I have a mindset moment for y'all today. I was dialed into what they were saying that I didn't think about my own mindset.
Right. I know you got it.
But I will say this, like, I think that we have to one is this is not about not voting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me start with that because I've seen some of that a little bit in the comments. Like, this is not about not voting. This is about understanding the power of our vote and the fact that we consistently give away our power with nothing in return. This is not a winning strategy. This is why Black people are not winning. And I think sometimes it's hard about that. It's hard to see that, especially and specifically if you live in a metropolitan area. But the numbers vote out the same. If you live in a rural area, it's pretty obvious, right? But I say that to say that this is not about not voting. This is about understanding our power and that we're not using it effectively at all. And so this is the society that we live in. This is the land that we're on. And we have the ability to make changes, but only when we leverage our power. And that doesn't mean to just give it away with nothing in return. This is an exchange. The vote is an exchange for something that benefits us. And at the moment, we are continuously giving away our vote without anything in return, whether that be reparations, whether that be positions. Like, we're very easily appeased. And I think that is one of the hardest things that I've come to learn about the Black community is how easily appeased we are. We are comfortable as long as it's a Black woman. It doesn't matter what harm that Black woman has done to Black communities and Black people. It doesn't matter what harm, as long as it's Democratic, it doesn't matter what harm those Democrats have done. As long as it's a Black person in office, it doesn't matter what harm those Black people have done. As long as a Black person has this position, it doesn't matter that they didn't go to school for DEI and they just keep getting thrown into positions because it's a check the box system. Like, we're very easily appeased. And that's something that we have to get out of in order for us to actually play and be strategic to win.
That was great. You know, y'all's power. We have power, y'all. Woo! I know you're about to come with a proverb and a scripture and a whatever else that's going to just shift my whole mindset. Give them what it is, Lethal, to have this mindset moment, a shift. And are we voting out of fear? Are we voting to win through a 7-generational lens?
So from a 7-generational lens, the questions we have to ask ourselves, as we said earlier in this podcast, are we voting not to lose, or are we voting to win? What exactly are we voting for? What exactly are we getting in return for our vote? I need us to understand that H and Theo were right when they spoke about the true ownership of this land. This is the land of my ancestors, right? Let us not kid ourselves. Africans were always here in this land that we call America. This is the land of my ancestors, and I'm not giving up shit because it's mine by right of inheritance. And so with that, I'll say this, and this is taken from FDR, right? An election cannot give a country a firm sense of direction if it has 2 or more national parties that are merely different names, but are as alike in their principles and aims as 2 peas in the same pod. I said this earlier when we opened up. Benign neglect, non-interference, ignoring the issues that are of concern to our people, foundational Black Americans who are the descendants of America's African slave trade, right? That is a policy that has been in existence going back some 50 years. And all of the politics, all of the parties, right, are involved in it. Point blank, period, plain and simple. I'm not here to tell you who to vote for. I'm not here to tell you not to vote or to vote or anything of that nature. My role and my position in this is to tell you, while the revolution may not be televised, our liberation will be.
Boom. Well, y'all, this has been a conversation. I know you're going into the debate tonight, and I hope you're going in with a new lens. I think one thing that I really take heart from this is remembering that all skin folks are not kin folks. When we look at our sister Breonna Taylor, and when Daniel Cameron, he had the opportunity to show us that her life mattered, and he did just the opposite. So I think we need to take a further look and see who's representing us and what are they saying that they're being held accountable to. What are they giving us? Remember, that together we do make a difference, and there is power in our culture, which is why you need to tune in next week so we can talk about the power of our culture and how we really can change this time. We're 7 Generations Black. You can tune in each and every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We are changing the narrative, and we're doing it with you. We thank you for being a part of this family. Until next time, peace, love, and keep hustling for your 7 Generations Black. Together we can. We appreciate y'all. Peace out, family.